Are you trying to figure out if you might be trans? Or maybe you're just curious to hear some stories about a young trans person trying to figure herself out? In this video, I'm going to go through my life and pick out 10 signs that I was trans but didn't know it. Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is Madeline Jones, and here on this channel I make videos about LGBT issues, spirituality, and just making the world a better place. So if that sounds like your cup of tea, consider subscribing. Before we get into the video, I want to give a huge thank you to all of my recent subscribers. We recently passed the 100 subscriber threshold, and that literally wouldn't have been possible without everyone who's watching this right now. So seriously, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. I hope to continue making videos that you love. This is a video that I've wanted to make for a long time because I'm really hoping that sharing my story might help some other trans people figure themselves out as well. A big part of why I started this channel in the first place was because of how helpful trans YouTubers were to me when I was trying to figure out my gender identity. So now that I am a trans YouTuber, I'm hoping to be able to pay it forward and help some other people in the same way that they helped me. So in this video, I'm going to go through my life and pick out 10 signs that I was trans but didn't know it. Things that make perfect sense in hindsight but really didn't at the time. If any of these things resonate with you, be sure to let me know down in the comments below. And with all that out of the way, let's get started with sign number 1. I literally told my grandmother that I was a girl when I was 3 or 4 years old. So this is kind of an embarrassing story actually, but I've always been a kid with no filter. And one day I randomly ran up to my poor grandmother and announced I sat down to pee because I'm a girl. I've never considered myself to be one of the trans people who's always just known that I was trans, and I think it's important to take a moment to note that trans people are valid no matter when they realize that they're trans, but I do think it's noteworthy that even as a little kid I was saying things like, I am a girl. Moving on to sign number 2. When I was in 5th grade, my parents literally had to teach me how to be a tough guy for the church play. I was just a very feminine kid, you know, hands on hips, flamboyant as hell, and even though I enjoyed things like trains and roughhousing and digging in the dirt, I've always been kind of feminine of center. And looking back on things, it's clear to me that I was always a tomboy, but never a boy. And I think that's a really important point to note, because one of the things that we look for in trans kids is whether or not they enjoy the toys and activities of a specific gender. We don't really stop to think about the trans boys who like nail polish, or the trans girls who don't care about unicorns unless someone's riding one into battle. I say all of this to say that if you're watching this and you think you might be trans, don't let anyone tell you that you're not because of the way you expressed your gender at any point in your life. Sign number 3. When I was in middle school, I identified very strongly with the Russian band t.A.T.u. For those of you who don't know, t.A.T.u was a group consisting of 2 women who many perceived as being in a relationship with one another. And when I say that I identified with them, I mean that I laid in bed, closed my eyes, listened to their songs, and wondered what it would be like to be a girl who was loved by another girl in the same way that Yulia and Lena sang about in their songs. I knew that I liked girls, but hearing Yulia and Lena singing about liking girls resonated with me so much more strongly than when straight boys did it. Sign number 4. When I was in 7th or 8th grade, I started praying to God that he would turn me into a girl. I was a very devout Christian at the time who believed that God could do literally anything, and I figured he'd make it so that I could play volleyball and that I could hang out with my friends at sleepovers and birthday parties and shopping sprees and all of the things that I was barred from because I was perceived as being male. Looking back on things now, I realize that I should have told someone I was feeling this way, but I genuinely believed it was normal. I mean, everyone thinks about what it would be like to be the opposite gender, right? Seriously though, if you're someone who's streaming or praying or constantly thinking about not being the gender you were assigned at birth, you owe it to yourself to talk to someone about it. Sign number 5. When I was in the 8th grade, I found myself completely enamored with the idea of wearing nail polish. Like, I saw this one upperclassman at my school getting his nails painted in the gym because he lost the bet, and my first thought was, damn, can I lose a bet too? And one day during after school care, I seized my opportunity. These girls who were probably like 3 years younger than me ran up to me and said, "Can we paint your nails?" You best believe I was not passing up this opportunity. But I had to make it seem like I wasn't interested, so I did this number where I slid my hand across the table and said, "You absolutely cannot paint my nails," and looked the other way as if I didn't know exactly what they were going to do. Needless to say, I loved my hot pink nails. But funny story, when I agreed to let them paint my nails, I was under the misconception that nail polish just chipped off afterwards, kind of like acrylic paint, and so I was terrified when I realized that I'd have to ask a member of my family to help me get it off with nail polish remover. Now if you're thinking, but Maddie, people of any gender can wear nail polish, you would be correct, and I applaud you for being so forward thinking. But I think the key here is that I didn't just like nail polish because I thought it looked cool. I liked nail polish because I thought it was feminine. Which leads me to sign number 6. When I was a junior in high school, I was in a play and I got to wear glitter and makeup and shimmery nail polish, and I cannot tell you how much it thrilled me. The show was Cinderella, and I initially wanted to audition for the role of the ugly stepsister because I thought it would be absolutely fabulous to play the role in drag. That idea got shot down, but I was given the opportunity to play the role of the flamboyantly gay best friend of Prince Charming. And when the costume director told me that I was one of the 3 characters in the show who could wear nail polish if I so chose, you best believe I so chose. I was already excited about wearing nail polish for the show, but it didn't take me long to realize that it would be super wasteful and time-consuming to remove the nail polish after every show and put it back on before every show, so I accepted that I'd just have to wear it every single day for the entire 3-week run of the show. And to be perfectly honest, I was super emotional the day that the show ended because I didn't want to take the nail polish off. I didn't want to stop wearing the lipstick or the makeup or the glitter. I didn't want to stop doing the things that made me feel like me. Even though I didn't end up going into theater as a major or a career, I'll forever be thankful for the way that theater helped me figure out who I was. And if you're watching this and you're interested in pursuing theater, I say go for it. Whether you're a part of the LGBT community or not, I'm a firm believer that pretending to be someone else can give you a clearer picture of who you really are. Anyway, sign number 7, when I was a senior in high school, I got in trouble for wearing heels to school. It was Spirit Week, and since the theme of the day was Fashion Disaster Day, I figured that wearing a pair of stiletto heels that were too small along with an absolutely horrendous outfit would fit the bill. But I went to a pretty conservative religious school, and one of the teachers got upset, actually called the assistant principal on her day off, and the assistant principal emailed me and asked me to take them off. Not gonna lie, I was a little bit upset about that because I put a lot of work into that outfit, but fortunately she didn't say anything about me wearing a skirt the next day, and I was really excited about that. Seriously, I don't know how I didn't realize I was trans. Moving on to sign number 8, I discovered the BEM sexual inventory, and I was absolutely overjoyed to find out that my masculinity score wasn't very high. This was also during my senior year of high school, and I discovered the BEM sexual inventory, which is a somewhat outdated yet still pretty fun test from the 70s, which determines whether you're more masculine, more feminine, or more androgynous. So naturally, being a curious person, I took the test and I was kind of relieved, actually, to find out that my highest score was androgyny. I was kind of disappointed that my femininity score wasn't higher than it already was, but I was honestly just relieved to find out that I wasn't primarily masculine. If you're questioning your gender, I wouldn't rely on this test or any other test to determine who you are, but I think it's worth noting what you want the test results to be. When I really started to question things, I took a bunch of gender quizzes, and I got everywhere from male to female and everything in between, but the key was that there was always one answer that I hoped to get. Sign number 9, my French teacher in college asked if she could call me Michelle, and I absolutely loved the idea. For those of you who don't know, French is a very gendered language. If you wanted to tell someone that you are American, then the proper translation if you are a man is Je suis américain, and if you're a woman, it's Je suis américaine. Seriously, I butchered both of those pronunciations. I really need to brush up on my French. Pretty much every noun in French is gendered, but in some cases there isn't really an audible difference between the masculine and feminine forms, as is the case with Michelle, which is spelled without an E in the masculine and with an E in the feminine. Obviously she was referring to me as Michelle in the masculine, but I got to pretend that she was referring to me as Michelle in the feminine. And yeah, I liked it so much that when I realized I was trans, it was the first name I considered calling myself before I finally settled on Madeline. So if you're someone who's questioning your gender, try seeing if you can find people to call you by different names just to see how it feels. And lastly, sign number 10, I realized just how much I had missed out on the things I wanted to do because of my perceived gender. And technically speaking, this isn't a sign that I was trans but didn't know it. This is how I finally realized that I was trans. During my senior year, I was a teaching fellow for a class that was all about sex, gender, and sexuality, and while I wasn't technically enrolled in the class, I still learned a ton, especially about myself. I had first started to consider the possibility that I might be trans towards the end of my junior year, as one of my friends was coming to terms with their non-binary identity, but it wasn't really anything more than just a hypothetical until my senior year, when it started to actually seem more like a possibility. I remember asking my then girlfriend if she would still stay with me if I came out as trans, and when she said no, I made the conscious decision to suppress those feelings. But just a few months later, a lot of things all happened at once. For one, she and I broke up, which removed a major barrier that stood in the way of me accepting myself. But it also coincided with her and several other friends of mine going on senior year, girls-only spring break trips. I know, it seems like a simple thing, not something to get worked up over, but I did. I was jealous and resentful and angry, but mostly I was just sad and hurt. All I wanted was to be with my friends, but they had all left me behind over a chromosome that I had never asked for, a chromosome that I didn't even want. The emotional distress I was feeling manifested as a physical ache, and for the first couple of days of spring break, pretty much all I did was sleep, because it was a relief from the pain. But then one day I was laying in bed trying to make sense of all the different emotions I was feeling, and I realized something crucial. I wasn't upset that they went on trips without me. I was upset that they went on trips without me because they saw me as a man. It was then that the pieces started to come together slowly, and for the rest of spring break, I kinda developed a routine where I would sit in front of my PS4, turn on Final Fantasy 15, mute the TV, and just listen to video after video after video of trans people sharing their story, trying to figure out if any of them sounded like me. And when I stumbled upon Corey Mason's anti-bullying video, it was then that I finally realized that I was trans. Like, up until that point, there was still a bit of wiggle room for me to say, well, maybe I'm just jealous, or maybe this is just a phase, or, well, maybe I can ignore these feelings. But when she talked about being allowed to play on the girls' sports teams and going through puberty as a girl and actually being seen as a girl, I realized that that was what I wanted. I realized that that was what I had always wanted. And so just a few weeks later, on my 21st birthday, I closed my eyes, made a wish to be myself, and blew out the candles. If you're trans or you think you might be trans, please let me know if any of this resonated with you, and please let me know if you have any questions. I don't pretend to be an expert or anything like that, but I know firsthand how overwhelming and confusing and sometimes lonely this whole process can be. So while I can't promise you that I'll have the answers to everything, I can promise that you won't have to look for those answers alone. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it, subscribe to my channel, and comment down below if you have any ideas for future videos. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video. Bye!